BMAdawg here, and welcome to the 13th episode edition of the Beantown Sports Town on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Heartbreaker in sight as our reigning defending 18-time champions are defending champions no more, as injuries played a plague for this team with the Knicks beating them up in Game 6, and you got the Bruins extending Don Sweeney. You also have our CONMEBOL teams competing in the national tournament, BU to softball, and your reigning defending champion BC women's lacrosse team. They compete this weekend at Gillette Stadium. You also get your final CONMEBOL baseball check-in of the year and more. All this on the Beantown Sports Town. Turn up the sound. It's time for the Beantown Sports Town. Ooh! Welcome, everybody. I'm your host of the Beantown Sports Town, BMAdawg, and tonight we got a special episode for you. We got, starting as the opener, we got breaking news from the Boston Bruins side of things with the extension of Don Sweeney, and one trade was finalized after this weekend's Game 7. We also got our final CONMEBOL baseball check-in of the year, as Northeastern and BC looks to punch their tickets to get an automatic berth. One of them definitely will. One of them will have a miracle. And Harvard almost came close too. We got the BU Terriers softball team this weekend. The BU Terriers softball team just played Oklahoma. You also have the Revolution playing 2 games, including the U.S. Open Cup. You got your reigning defending champion Celtics falling short in a heartbreaker on the plague with certain injuries running rampant through that team, not just Tatum's Achilles. We'll get more to that later as a busy offseason ahead. You got the BC women's lacrosse team competing at Gillette Stadium this weekend. We're also going to have a little tribute to our beloved sitcom TV character, George Wendt, passed away at the age 76. We'll do a little bit of tribute since Cheers was a big Beantown lore back in the day. And the main event of the evening, you got the Boston Red Sox, who look to be turning things up, turning more after this. A wonderful world from our sponsors.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. As always, I'm your host, BMAdawg. And I'd like to thank all our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the best jerky on the planet. Vital Apparel, where some of our proceeds go towards mental health awareness research, which is very, very important for everybody. So that's a big deal. And Seal the Deal Wax Seals. It's very important that bridal showers are coming up. Nicer weather's coming. You got communions. You got graduation parties for high school coming up. So get a deal for Seal the Deal Wax Seals on customizable stuff for all your friends and family needs. And also follow thank you to all three of our sponsors, and follow everyone on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. All right now on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And I'd like to if you want to follow me, you can follow all of my things right now on X at Beantown _IESR and at BMAdawg on X. You can follow me at my personal and professional emails, as we're going to have a lot of coverage since summer's over. Unfortunately, Bruins and Celtics talk is all done for game recaps, but we still got some Bruins talk tonight, and it is our opener for the evening, scheduled for one fall, and it is the Boston Bruins. As you guys heard, if you're paying attention to hockey, big important trade deadline happened. Brad Marchand, former longtime Boston Bruins player, advanced to the Eastern Conference Final on Sunday, defeating beloved chokers of April and May, the Toronto Maple Leafs, in an empty net goal to seal the deal for the Florida Panthers to send them not only the Eastern Conference Finals, but it's really good for Boston too, as we got a first round draft pick for 2022. Believe it or not, we got a first round pick this year, 7th overall, as the trade lottery ping pong and balls already happened, but the NHL isn't as controversial as the Islanders. No, because the NBA, on the other hand, is very controversial, as the Dallas Mavericks completed the first overall pick for the NBA draft lottery, a team that was in the finals against our beloved Celtics not too long ago. But they got the number 1 overall pick to get top New England prospect from Duke, Cooper Flagg. What on earth is that? You also have the New York Islanders getting the number 1 pick, which is a team that almost competed in a playoff run. A lot of people thought, since we had tied with the Philadelphia Flyers for the worst Eastern Conference record, there was 3 teams behind us. They were all in the Western Conference, the Sharks, the Blackhawks, the Predators, all getting better picks than us, which is kind of hard to believe, to be honest with you folks, as the Bruins do have the 7th overall pick. But speaking of picks, there's a GM that will still be available to make that pick, as controversial and former longtime Bruin legend Don Sweeney got extended to 2027, my friends. Unfortunately, it's something that's going to happen. I'm not against them as a GM, believe it or not. I know people are very upset with Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, how they handled things in Boston. As, believe it or not, I've said this from episode 1. All of our episodes are not catching up to it, as I mentioned that they're not doing so well this year, for the worst season we had in 10 years, all because of our drafting has been very terrible for all of us. Unfortunately, our drafting has been awful to the point where we're in this mess right now because of it. So thank you very much to everyone for understanding that, as it is coming back to haunt the Boston Bruins. But Don Sweeney gets to fix it, as we got rid of a lot of our cap space, including Brandon Carlo, who was on the Toronto Maple Leafs opposite Bruins Marchand for the Florida Panthers. Former Bruin AJ Greer was on the Panthers as well. You also had the opportunity to make a bunch of picks. Cam Neely as well. So hopefully we can ride up the ship, as a lot of people know that the guy that actually led the Toronto Maple Leafs in scoring and points wasn't Austin Matthews, who no-shows in the playoffs, just like you saw in the Four Nations face-off, and every time he plays against the Bruins. As a fun fact is, Brad Marchand coming in before, he never played on any other teams besides the Bruins before the trade deadline. Florida Panthers legend is 4-0 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. How crazy is that? And now he's 5-0 with that goal to send the people in Canada all heartbroken, because the Maple Leafs are like the Cowboys up north, and they're like the Yankees here. All the media coverage they get and everything, and they felt like this was their year as they won the Atlantic Division. Florida always has a tough team, whether it's Sam Bennett, Carter Venergy, and this still without Matthew Tkachuk. Imagine if his brother Brady could come to the Bruins. He's a free agent coming out of Ottawa. we also have to draft better. We got 2 draft picks next year, 2 the year after. As Don Sweeney hasn't done bad per se, record-wise, for the Bruins takeaway this year, because they've been in playoff contention the past 8 years until this year. Unfortunately, what are you going to do? You also have Don. You also have the playoffs going on with the Florida Panthers beating the Carolina Hurricanes last night. Now I don't really care what happens. I was on torn because part of me felt bad for Toronto fans, but part of me was rooting for Florida just so we could get the number 1 pick. But you got to admit, it is pretty funny, though. It is hilarious to see Toronto always choke and lose, but it's kind of a scary thing if we do get back in the playoffs next year. What is this team going to look like? You're going to re-sign Geeky, we hope. You have Zaka on the team. You have Pasternak locked off for a long time. Thank God for that, as it's going to look like a whole different team. You have Jeremy Swayman as our goaltender, just like Don Sweeney. Jeremy Swayman had a disappointing season this year. He didn't look so great. He gave up over 3 goals average a game, which isn't the greatest for this year, especially coming off a really great year he had in the postseason a year ago. Because Linus Ullmark, unfortunately, since Jeremy Swayman held out, and that might have been the start of the dominoes. Well, technically, 2 years ago, the Florida Panthers beating the Bruins was a huge domino effect. A huge domino effect for that team, beating them in overtime. But it's not a fluke anymore because they've gotten better each year, the Florida Panthers. And you also got the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars on the Western Conference side. You could have a Stanley Cup rematch from last year with the Oilers and the Panthers, but you got longtime former Bruins first-round draft pick Tyler Seguin doing phenomenal this year. You have him doing so phenomenal as he's disciplined himself. Obviously, Robertson's their leading point scorer in Dallas, but you don't hear about all this stuff that you really hear from NHL players. Sagan's first 5 years, which led Don Sweeney to be coming in, to whether he was sleeping with other players' wives or whatever, or other or controversial stuff, staying out of practices, oversleeping, going to the Boston nightclub scene. And that brought Don Sweeney and Cam Neely in, as they were longtime players. Don Sweeney was a great defenseman. Look, I'm not that upset with the extension, but I think we should have waited till next year before they did it. Charlie Jacobs and the gang is very loyal to Neely and Sweeney because they've been playing in the organization for a long time. And the Delaware North Company, owned by the Jacobs, has owned the Bruins for a very, very long time. As look, even though the Bruins season is over, if news like this pops up, same as the Celtics, same as the Patriots, we're always going to cover it on the Sports Pound. So overall, I do think it's not a bad idea that Sweeney is still there for next year, but I'm not crazy. I'll be honest with you. I am not crazy about it going for 2 years, because if they improve next year and make the playoffs, absolutely, I agree with the 2-year extension, because you can't blame all of it on Sweeney. A lot of the players had a ton of locker room problems, which probably led to Marchand getting traded, as you saw the news report with him, Pasternak, and people in the locker room in December. That might have made a huge factor in these trades, as either guys weren't thrilled with each other or the longtime veterans got way too comfortable being in Boston, as they thought they were untouchable. And what led Peter Chiarelli to getting fired almost 10 years ago is because they made moves. The Bruins missed the playoffs. He got fired. Don Sweeney came in and cleaned up that mess, is because he overpaid guys, which we weren't able to keep. Defenseman Johnny Boychuk. We signed Lucic before he came back, and not going to talk about the controversial end of things with him last year, but they overpaid him a lot of money. Adam McQuaid and all these guys, which the NHL, unlike the NFL, MLB, they're not strict about salary cap. They barely have one, but they are very strict with the cup. They are super strict with the salary cap, because the NHL is one of those teams where they don't have the luxury tax like the other 3 leagues do, and it's a huge difference maker for this team, being able to sign a lot of guys. We'll talk about the other tenant at TD Garden a little later with signings, but we got to go out and sign a center. I would love for them to draft Higgins or try to get some other centers over there, because Patrice Bergeron left the void when he retired. He was one of the best face-off percentage in the country. And as you saw last week when I covered the NHL release their all-quarter team from 2000 to 2025, and Bergeron and Chara was on it. Chara represents some toughness for this team, as our D has been very thin this year too. But don't forget, you got Lindholm getting healthy next year. You'll have McAvoy back. And you'll have some of these guys like Lorelei, who's doing good at the World Juniors, which we may talk about. Not World Juniors, USA Worlds. They do World Tournament for hockey right now, as Jeremy Swayman's been doing very well in that too. And David Pasternak's been playing in his country as well, which is very amazing for this team. Absolutely amazing. I can't wait to see what they do next year, as they're going to have a busy offseason. And apparently Charlie Jacobs trusts, there's something we know that we don't, as a lot of fans don't seem very happy. It's understandable after the decline this year, but I think them getting a lot of younger guys, and like bring up guys like Wotherspoon, who did decent. You have Cole Kope, who had a few goals in a game. You have Casey Middlestat, who did pretty well coming from the Avalanche, which we traded Charlie Coyle for. As we got all of these guys to help us next year, and you're going to have a fresh, younger Bruins team, which got a lot of playing time towards the end. Obviously, they need to get their physical backbone back. We need to have a strong D to check guys as Boston Bruins hockey. You got Nikita Zadorov trying to get fans energized after the one of the few bright spots after the Four Nations was Zadorov always stuck up when a guy cheap shot at Swayman in Los Angeles with the Kings. He stuck up for his team. As I love to see that. That's what Sean Thornton was known for. And you had PJ Stock back in the day. And even guys in the 70s like Terry O'Reilly, known for getting fights, sticking up for their teammates. We need more of that. We need to have a new morale to bring back the old morale, if it makes any sense. But we still don't have a head coach. You got Mike Sullivan from Pittsburgh, who used to coach for the Bruins for one season. He used to coach the farm system, then he became their assistant. He did lead Sidney Crosby in the game of the Stanley Cup, but he got signed by the New York Rangers. You got Joe Quenneville, despite his controversy, get signed by the Anaheim Ducks, our CEO of IE Sports Radio's Larry's team. So they should get better in a few years, and the West is very tough. But you're guaranteed for the Kings and Oilers to play each other, so that's very hard in that Western Conference. As believe it or not, the East has not been represented by the state of Florida the past 4 years since the pandemic, 5 years since the pandemic started. That's an interesting stat, isn't it? I can't wait to see what they have more in stock. As we are going to move on and check the comments real quick. Who is commenting for us? Mr. Ralph Calise from the Yinza Report. Good evening, Brian, my main man for Beantown Spirits and Sports. Have a tremendous show, buddy. Thank you, pal. And Steelers Patriots week 3. Let's hook up to preview it. Absolutely. I did one preview so far, and that was with Ricky K of the New York State of Sports for the Knicks Celtics. Boy, my predictions were wrong, because this series turned out not only different for the Celtics, but the Knicks as well. But that's enough Bruins talk for tonight. And we're going to try and get into next week for the OTAs for the Patriots, as their OTAs have started for today. But we are going to move on to one of our other teams in ComAv that already happened. Their playoffs has happened as the College World Series for women's softball has occurred. And they had a tough matchup right off the bat for the BU Terriers softball team. They don't have a men's baseball team, but they make up for it for the women's team, as they won the Patriot League 3 consecutive conferences. 3 consecutive years they won. But they played the Oklahoma Sooners, and as one famous commentator said, it was a slobber knocker as they went down 8-0 in that game, including a 5-run second inning, and you had Brooke Despisey, who I talked about last week, got award for Patriot League Player of the Year. She went 1 for 3 as the bats were shut out because the SEC, even though there's not really a Big 12 anymore, the SEC, as we know, they dominate the football scene so well with Alabama and Georgia's run and prospects like LSU in football. But they dominate baseball and softball. As good weather year-rounds make a difference for these college softball and baseball clubs, as it's tough here because our weather's back and forth. Today I was working outside and it was 45 degrees and I needed a jacket on. Isn't that insane? And last week it was when the sun came back after 10 consecutive days in Boston. You needed something. You didn't need a jacket. It was amazing. But following a scoreless inning, Oklahoma, the defending national champion, by the way, made a 5-run second inning and BU got 2 on start with Karen Lyons getting hit by pitch, and Megan Coyle got a 2-walk wall. But they had a chance to go up in the beginning of the second before, but there was a pop-up that made a difference in them. Casey Richard has been pretty good all year with a 26-11 record. Got that bad second inning made a huge difference because they weren't eliminated with this loss. It's not like the college basketball, football, or hockey winner take all. They have an elimination. Whoever wins this gets to the next round and avoids the next game. And they ended up losing 8-0 as soon as got a shutout, which they are the defending world champions, so it's interesting to see what they do. But can BU bounce back against a lesser strength Omaha team? Omaha from Peyton Manning, one of our arch rivals in Boston, had a famous play call, and you could hear him towards the end of his tenure scream, Omaha. As BU did start off in the game with 3 scoreless innings for them, but they held Omaha to no runs until the 4th inning. It's a battle to try to avoid elimination as the Omaha Mavericks came in 40-12, and they had a pair of homers in this game, which made it very tough on BU as Brooke Despisey did get back to 2 for 3 and had a run. But Cameron Lyons had a great game, going 4 for 4 and 1 RBI. But unfortunately, it was not enough as they fell 3-1 in this game. And unfortunately, it was a great year for the Lady Terriers, but they didn't have success again in the postseason, which, like I said, it's very competitive with BC, BU having a tough time too. It's a very competitive year around here for baseball, as we don't have the weather to have the teams be very, very competitive. It's unfortunate. And Jen B just had a comment for us saying, "Hey, Brian, hope you're having a great show. We're in the same boat as she hosts a Cleveland area sports show of the land every Sunday morning. Catcher. She covers all the teams, not only college, but she has a lot of minor league teams in the area she covers. We're suffering the same problem as her. Cleveland Cavaliers were suffered by injuries as well. So it's very sad for our teams, which a lot of people thought we were going to get a Celtics Cavaliers final, but unfortunately we didn't. But let's move on to the men's for our final ComAv baseball check-in of the year. As the Northeastern Huskies is the hottest team in all of college baseball, coached by former Met player Tom Glavine, as we're going to get to them later, as the Red Sox are currently trying to go for a sweep against his former team. But holy cow, has he done a great job with this Northeastern Huskies. They're top in all of college baseball in shutouts, top of all in minus whip, all in less ERA. And you got player of the year, guy who hits homers, always gets on base every game. Harrison Feinberg got CAA, Coastal Athletic Association player of the year. That is awesome. They deserve it. I cannot wait to see what this team looks like, as they are currently playing North Carolina ATT starting today in a 2-game series to try and maintain. Not only are they the Conference Athletic Association division champions, they are also gonna try to get a super automatic berth if they win this conference. They moved up. They were unranked all year. They didn't get the credit they deserve. Last week they were 25th in the nation, and this week, yesterday, the rankings for AP poll for college baseball came in. They had 19th in the league. I cannot wait to see this team play, as we will cover them next week, as they are going to be playing in the college baseball tournament, as we'll have a team to cover more in depth in. But you have another team that's avoiding elimination, and they were 26-28 and 11-19 in the ACC. Is the BC Eagles. They did get 2 out of 3 from Cal, I believe, California Golden Bears, as they have struggled all year against them. But they struggled all year against their division opponents. Sorry about that. But they avoided elimination, upset the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who they beat in a walk-off in Brookline a few weeks ago, stealing home base. Pete Freites with a 3-2 win. They beat them 5-4 last night. The first pitch was like 10:45, so it was hard to start watching them. But they take on the Virginia Cavaliers in another late night run tonight. Unfortunately, this Eagles team is going to have to win out to even get in the NCAA tournament, as Pete Freites has been a great base runner for this team, as the BC baseball team has had some tough outings this year, highs and lows. Not Pete Freites. Sorry about that, but they have stolen the base a lot of times this year for BC, as BC baseball does do good, just like the Red Sox do at stealing bases. That's what's kept them in a lot of games this year, as they look really good and hopefully try to get in the tournament. It's my bad. His name's Patrick Rhodes. Pete Freites is the guy. I apologize, folks, with the Ice Bucket Challenge, because they did have a game in his honor in Fenway Park this year against Notre Dame, which unfortunately they lost. If you remember a viral moment 10 years ago to fight ALS, everyone's dumping the Ice Bucket Challenge, as it was Patrick Roach who did well stealing at home that game against Notre Dame. I apologize for that. My fault there, as they look to upset the Virginia Cavaliers tonight. But you got another team, the Harvard Crimson, who started off real slow with only 2 wins most of the year, but they ended up getting 9 wins of the year, and they moved up to 9-12 for the division, 14-28 of the year. They moved up, and they got the 4th seed, upsetting the top-ranked Yale for the Ivy League, not top-ranked in the country, 8-6, but they fell short against Columbia, 14-6, as unfortunately the season is done for them. But it won't be over for all of our Combat baseball teams as we move into individual coverage with Northeastern next week, like we're doing for the BC Women's Lacrosse. And if BC can go the rounds this weekend, tonight and this weekend, we'll have coverage for them in their game if they make it. But thank you all for tuning in. And next, we got news on the Revolution and the Celtics and BC Women. So don't go anywhere, folks. Thank you very much. And it's time for a commercial break.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph DeLeese, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate, diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph DeLeese, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
All right, everybody, we're back from our first commercial break of the night. Before we get on to talking on some Celtics talk, obviously some sad news, but there's another week of sad news. Some people thought the Don Sweeney stuff was bad. Our unbeaten streak for the Revs have came to the end last night as they had two games this week. One was that U.S. Open Cup, which took place in Centerfield, Rhode Island, down right where the Rhode Island FC UFL team plays, which the Revs took on a few weeks back in the first round to get to round of 32 for the U.S. Open Cup. It's like how tennis does it, but it's named after the Hunt family. So the Revs had a clean sheet against the San Jose Earthquakes this past weekend. It was a interesting game. It kind of was like the first game of the season where they played Nashville SC, as they were tied at 0 that game. But Elijah Ivanchik has played a really great game with a 6th straight clean sheet. That is amazing as it went full time. Gillette had 3,178 fans this past Saturday night, which is a great showing for the weather that hasn't been that great all year, especially since it wasn't near the area, as Foxborough can be tough from people in the inner cities where a lot of soccer fans are to come through the team. San Jose has one of the best offenses in the Western Conference in MLS, but the Revs are known for Caleb Porter's defensive units, and they only gave up 10 goals through 12 games this year, which is pretty impressive. I know people can be negative on Caleb Porter and everything, but Leo Capani had 2 shots of the night. And midfielder Carl Gill, who won the first ever Revs Play of the Week in the first ever Revs main event a few weeks back, had 2 shots, one on target, which didn't go in. As his streak with the 0-0, it stopped his 6-game point streak. But Ilja Ivanchik looked really good. But you had a backline who, with Tanner Beeson up until Wednesday's game, hasn't lost a game that he started in the back. But you got the Israel international sensation, Alay Fingal, make his 12th consecutive appearance to open the season, played in all appearances dating back through last year. And Peyton Miller getting his 8th straight shot on the defensive too. This is the first meeting between New England and San Jose since 2019. So it's not like the now MLB, NBA, and NHL where East and West plays each other all year. They do it very differently. They are 4-0-4 dating back to 2013 against the Earthquakes. But Matt Polster went over 90 minutes in this game, which is amazing. And Luis Diaz is kind of like Peyton Pritchard, kind of for the Revs coming off the bench. He had his season long over 50 minutes, as Charles Gill did snap the streak, unfortunately, but they also had 2 yellow cards, which is kind of below their average of 3, which is a good thing. But they're back to not scoring again, unfortunately. But they have a quick turnaround, as soccer games, MLS games, are usually once a week. But if they do in-season tournaments, they can be twice a week, as they took on Chicago in Rhode Island. In the Chicago Fire, they haven't played in a very long time, as it started off with 2 yellow cards for the Revs after the 56th minute, but within the 39th minute, they gave up. The streak is over for Ivanchik as he gave up one goal of the year, as the Revs had no shots on goal, no shots on Wednesday's U.S. Open game, but they made more of the passes. But the problem is it's very hard for teams. You see with pitchers in baseball, you don't see a lot of them play every single game. They get worn out with their arms. For soccer, it's your legs, especially where they don't have a lot of equipment. So guys like Gill, Celebrios, Brendan Biden get as much playing time on this game. And it kind of shows as the Revs, unfortunately, lost 3-1 on this game with a 1-0 deficit in the first half, and they were unable to recover the 69th minute, down 2-0, and there were subs all the way through the 79th minute, and the Fire scored another goal as the Revs didn't score a goal until it was the 89th minute of the game, which is 39 in the second half, as Reynolds got his first goal of the year to make it 3-1 in the Revs. So my thoughts on this is they take on the Sport in Kansas City this Saturday is their next game. The Revs are currently at 11th place in the Eastern Conference for the MLS, right behind the New York teams, the Red Bulls and FC. So it will be interesting, as just like the NBA, they do a play-in 10th and 9th. So their next two games are for the month of May. Obviously, they're not home this weekend because of the men's and women's lacrosse at Gillette Stadium. We're going to talk about one very shortly. But they play DC United, who's always had their number, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Right after they play Kansas City on Saturday. They play them on Wednesday, I believe. So another 2-game stretch for the Revs, as hopefully some of their younger guys get more opportunities to play for them, as it would be very nice for them to get some playing time, as they're going to need it, because soccer's a very long season. I know it doesn't get talked about because their schedule is very similar to sports that play once a week. But this is a time to get all your players to be able to help Gill in the attack field. Try to get more goaling opportunities. There's a lot of young players you get to see grow right now for the Revs, as it is a nice time to see, as they're not bottom of the barrel like they were a month ago, as we thought there'd be no shot this year. But this is an exciting time for soccer in New England, as we're going to go look at our comment section as we're done talking about the Revs, and we'll cover their 2 games next week. And Mr. Turn Rodriguez is in the chat watching, host of our SoCal Sports Report with all the Los Angeles teams, as he gets to laugh at me right now because I'm going to switch topics, as his Lakers obviously got eliminated in the first round, even though the Dodgers are really good. He does a great job covering volleyball, making it feel like a major sport, which it's going to be with all the colleges and all the exposure it's getting through his hit Set Point show Monday nights at 9:00. It's a great show. He goes over all the rounds, and I don't know how he does it, but he manages to do it, as volleyball is he's trying to get it exposed, and hopefully we get a new volleyball league sooner rather than later here. That would be a nice feat to see, as it is time for the moment you've been waiting for, folks. It is a sad time right now, and I'll be brutally honest, including this show, I did not think we were going to talk about the Celtics elimination this early right now, unfortunately. But you get the last laugh, Taryn and Larry, as they're big Lakers fans. Karma might have got to me, as I did laugh so hard when the Timberwolves upset LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and the Lakers. Oh, here he is. I knew it. Oh, stop. I won't be laughing at the Celtics, but thank you, bro. Yeah, okay. Just like when you go out and you say you're only going to have one beer. You're only going to have one beer. It's kind of the same thing. But anyways, thank you for that. As we're going to have a very sad time in Boston, because you went from repeat to possibly rebuild with one play in game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, as a scary situation with star player, face of the franchise of Boston, Jason Tatum, tore his Achilles, and he is going to be out for an expected period of 8 to 12 months as his health is getting better. He had surgery last week, as we wish him well. There's all these guys have been playing with injuries. As Jaylen Brown, we found out right after they've been eliminated Friday night game 6, had a torn meniscus. And that is a brutal way to go out for this team. It's a sad time right now because Jaylen Brown, we thought could lead the team next year after we were all horrified in Tatum's injury. You have Porzingis, who's battling an off-and-off injury, which he was out for at least 5 games in the midway in the regular season in March, battling with a non-COVID illness, as he hasn't been the same. He wasn't able to take it to the hoop and design plays. And you got Sam Hauser hurting his leg in game 4 as well and wasn't able to come back in the rest of the series, which he is a good rebounder and he's a great three-pointer. Let's face it, a lot of these guys. But let's recap game 6 before we get into the future of the Celtics, shall we? Obviously, it was a sad state of affairs as the Celtics only had one lead in this game of one point, as Jaylen Brown did go over 31 minutes of play. And unfortunately, this game was over by the second half, folks. They didn't have in them compared to game 5 where they stormed and defeated the Knicks with Derek White and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown getting a double-double and Derek White playing out of his mind in that game 5 to make it 3-2. We thought do we have a chance? Do we have a chance to force game 7 on Monday? Do we have a chance? Unfortunately, no. It's going to be a long offseason. Already long if you look at social media with Boston sports. I don't like seeing all these fantasy trades and all of that. Go back to, that's like a guy playing Madden and making these made-up trades, sending 10 years ago Adrian Peterson and the Patriots. Some of them's going to happen. Some of it's not. As Jaylen Brown did have 20 points in that game 6 loss. Pritchard missed a ton of shots, but he still was able to get 10. But here's the next factor. I thought it was going to be Drew Holiday, but he really, really struggled in this series. As I said during a couple weeks back when we did a preview with the Knicks with Ricky, but you had a Drew Holiday struggling, but you had guys besides Jalen Brunson game 6 standing up for this team. As I said, the Knicks had a shot at winning the series if guys besides Jalen Brunson step up, including OG Anunoby destroying the three-point range. You got Cat, who had 15 points in the game and 12 rebounds, getting another double-double, his 27th career double-double. And it's turned out to be a really good trade for the Knicks, as the Timberwolves are doing just fine without him too, as they are taking on the Thunder. SGA and the Thunder, speaking of it, SGA won regular season MVP today for the NBA. After I thought whoever was going to win that game 7 between Jokic and the Nuggets and SGA and the Thunder was going to win that award, but it turned out to be SGA, as the Thunder play the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. And my inner wrestling fan in me should have made a bet after this summer when SmackDown was in Madison Square Garden. It is not just known for Paul Heyman not acknowledging Solo Sikoa and saying, "Not my tribal chief." No, as Tyrese Halliburton of the Pacers was recruited from Logan Paul to get heat in New York after the Pacers defeated the Knicks last year, and Jalen Brunson being brought out when he had a ringside seat to defend LA Knight. I should have known. Maybe it is scripted. No, probably not. I'm just messing with you folks, but should have known that it would be Pacers Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. It is going to be a great series. It's starting pretty soon in 5 minutes, as not only do they got Miles Turner, who's been phenomenal, getting a bunch of, and Mike Conley too. So I'm going to be rooting for the Pacers, but a lot of Knicks fans do deserve this. I know there were a lot of jerks who were attacking Boston fans after the street. These people were celebrating in Game 6 like they had a time machine in 1969 when Joe Namath was waving his finger up the air after upsetting the Baltimore Colts, and they were celebrating a Jets Super Bowl, which ain't gonna happen anytime soon, and I don't have a problem with that, folks. They celebrate like they won the whole NBA title, and you had Tatum tear his Achilles. You had us blowing 2 20-point plus leads at home, games 1 and 2, which led them to come back. And people were celebrating, breaking stuff, right? They're all celebrating like they won the NBA title. But granted, I understand because they haven't made it in a long time since the 80s, the Eastern Conference Finals. As it is, one of the bright spots of all this is, I can't believe I'm saying this, but no more TNT basketball. I enjoy Shaq. I enjoy Charles Barkley. But Kenny Albert, the son of legendary Marv Albert, covers Rangers games and Knicks game as Fox, and he's a Fox Sports NFL analyst. That guy was so biased for the Knicks. But we have crazy people like Mike Gorman and Jack Edwards who retired last year. I miss those guys covering games because I'm obviously, we're all homers and us represent our cities. I'm very passionate about my lore, about my teams. I love my teams. That's why I'm here. I'm not one of those guys that's Yankees, Patriots, Canadians, Lakers, or whatever, like some teams are around the country. Some people are, especially with markets that don't have as talented teams. But I know it's confusion. I'm sure the guys in Davidson Crooks, who does a great job with his friend DeMarcus Lore, covering Fast Break every Sunday nights at 8. I'm sure they'll mention this, but the reason why I'm mentioning TNT and their bias, because it's their last year for NBA basketball. As they're going to go to a confusing system where Amazon Prime's going to get games. The good thing is NBC is going to get basketball again, which they did a phenomenal job in the 90s with the MJ and Kobe Bryant and all those guys. And you got ABC retain the finals rights for ESPN. So it's going to be very, very confusing for a viewer. And rumor has it that local regional sports networks like Comcast Sportsnet, so that might mean no Scalabrini or Eddie House covering the first round next year. Obviously, we got to get through the regular season. And speaking of next year, the reason why I mention that, because Brad Stevens is going to have a lot of work to do with Joe Mazzulla's team in the game, as they're probably going to try and deal Holiday like they did Marcus Smart a few years back, as it was very devastating, as we don't know how long Brown's going to be. Hopefully he can avoid surgery, and hopefully prayers to Porzingis as he can get through okay. As there's rumors of Giannis from the Bucks being fed up with Milwaukee. He's going to be either a big guy on the trade market or free agent market. Are they going to try to sign him, depending on how long Tatum's going to be out for? This is a good opportunity, like the end of the game. They have Baylor Shearman, who they got from Baylor, ironically, last year, last pick of the NBA draft. I'm going to have to pay attention to the draft more carefully now, as we're going to have to try to develop fast, as we're going to have to try and get through Christmas time from October to December, as NBA starts in October, not November, for the Celtics to try and get back there. Peyton Pritchard, he doesn't like to start because he loves coming off the bench. Might give you opportunities if we keep Sam Hauser. Luke Cornett shows you could prove rebounds. And thank you to Al Horford, if it's his last year playing in NBA basketball. Played on many teams, including the Hawks. And the former national champion with the Florida Gators, as he had a phenomenal game when the Celtics won game 3, as he had like 7 blocks in that game, as he can play from time to time. Who knows if he can play like all 40-plus minutes of an NBA game, who knows? But we're going to have to get some development, including if they keep Nikitas Quinta. But another guy they should play more next year, if he's still on the team, is J.D. Davidson, as he was their top farm development in the NBA D-League way up in Maine for the Maine Celtics, formerly the Red Claw. He broke their records in points, assists, and rebounds. They should give him a lot of playing time next year, as we're going to need a lot, as it's going to be a very long season. And for the final time, I will say this one last time, the end of your recaps of the season, for your reigning, defending 18-time NBA champion. But this will be the final time I ever say that, for hopefully not more than a year, as it is time to move on, folks, as we got a busy offseason ahead of us for the Celtics, a lot of anxiety around our Boston fans, as we are going to go to a State of the Sports Pound as our opener next week, as since Bruins and Celtics are all done playing games. The Red Sox are not the only act in town. Yeah, colleges are out for the semester. There'll be less stuff to cover, but we're not taking a break in IE Sports Radio and the Sports Pound. Maybe I'll take an episode off in July or something because we are going to have a busy fall. We are going to have a fun fall. And August starts when the Patriots start training camp and preseason. We will talk to them a lot as we're going to pass the torch right now. As believe it or not, folks, the Celtics weren't the only reigning defending champions coming into the season. No, they weren't. You got a team that has 8 consecutive national championship appearances, and it's one of our prestigious universities. The Boston College women's lacrosse team is amazing and unbelievable, as they're not only one of the top-ranked women's sports in the whole country. Obviously, North Carolina's number one. They take on a team they played 2 years in a row, the Northwestern University Wildcats at Gillette Stadium this Friday at 5:30. God bless everyone. I'm going to try to make it out there. I don't know if I'm going to drive, if I'm better off taking the T. I really want to try and go see them. But that Memorial Day traffic is going to be brutal, as traffic's bad anyways, but everyone's going to try to go to the Cape, Maine. It's a 4-day weekend and the unofficial start of summer. There'll be accident galore. As it is New England, people don't have any patience, as they will beep up people all weekend. So, and it's in Gillette Stadium, which is near all the Cape traffic, even though it's between Boston and Providence. A lot of people that are watching that aren't from New England is not in Boston or close to Fenway, or it's not terribly far, like a 2-hour drive. It's like a 30 to 45-minute drive if there's no traffic, God forbid. The reason why I'm talking about that is we are going to cover one of our reigning defending champion, the BC women's lacrosse team's unbelievable. They're encouraging people to wear neon, as they have in the Alumni Stadium. They defeated Stony Brook in their first, after having a first round bye. So it is an amazing accomplishment for that team. This team's unbelievable. They also played Yale this past Thursday, but I wasn't able to watch it, so I was able to rewatch some. And I'm going to give you a recap momentarily, as it was a great game, as Yale did play them tougher, just like Stony Brook did towards the end of the fourth quarter. This team was unbelievable, as they ended up doing well and breaking records in this game in their smaller venues. They go back and forth between the football stadium and the Newton soccer fields for their home games. It was an intense game at first because they were tied at 4 apiece. It all started with who else but Rachel Clark, who went unassisted, scoring the first goal until it's tied 10 minutes in by Yale. And then Kaylee Colbert, assisted by McKenna Davis, got the next 2 assists. She leads the team in assists all year, as this team has broken a lot of records. It was tied at 4 in this game. It was a great game to watch on TV, as I taped it. It was on ESPNU. That's a beauty part about ESPN Plus and you, especially us, where we try to cover all sports. You can rewatch a lot of college games. We're trying to get a bunch of coverage to all these teams. Like they are finally making waves on social media, but a lot of teams, they don't get the coverage like the national football and basketball teams do. And even our hockey teams don't get the coverage, but that's what I'm here for, and people in IE Sports Radio. With her 8th goal, Rachel Clark surpassed Charlotte North for the most goals in a single season, for 103 and counting, and she got over 300 goals in her career. She has hopefully 2 games left. They're probably going to play North Carolina if they beat Northwestern. Shea Dulce, in her 11th game with double-digit saves, is 8 stops from becoming one of 2 BC all-time goalkeepers to have 200 saves in a season. McKenna Davis has had 100 points this year. And Laponto had 108 points this year. But they're lucky that Gillette Stadium, it's like a home game for them. Got to host these regionals, as Maryland's known for dominating the lacrosse team. But head coach of BC is a phenomenal coach. Acacia Walker-Webstein has took over 10 years ago, and the school's been dominant ever since. It's amazing what this team can do, as they hopefully have a great turnout this Friday, as It is great. It's too bad it's Memorial Day weekend because there'll be a ton of traffic, especially in rush hour. But the 8th consecutive year, they are headed to the national semifinals. They did trail in this game late in the first half, 6-5. But then they had a 9-0 run in the third quarter. Morgan Smith had a nice goal in the back of the net, and she's a great defensive player for this team, as she's got forced a pair of turnovers, as BC did win this game 18-11, and they are going to take on Northwestern. Cannot wait to watch this game. It's going to be an amazing feat, and it's like passing the torch, as they're one of our best performance college teams in the country. As good luck to the Lady Eagles this weekend. They're going to kill it at Gillette, and good luck. Hopefully they have a rematch of the century against the North Carolina Top Heels, who have the number 1 spot and gave BC their only ACC and regular season losses of the year. Good luck, ladies. I cannot wait to see this team play with 8 All-Americans in the country, the All-American Awards, and all ACC teams. They are an amazing team. I cannot wait to watch them this Friday, as we are going to take one final commercial break, as we're going to have a different segment before our main event of the evening. Don't go anywhere. It's our last commercial break of the night. Folks, as you are watching on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for tuning in so far. As I want to remind you that our special 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday, June 7th, is our Player of the Quarter special. We nominated Charles Gill so far of the Revolution, David Pasternak of the Bruins, and we got our 4 Celtics nominees. That was an intense vote on X this past weekend. Who is our? We have Derek White. We got Peyton Pritchard as the dark horse, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Our nominee was an upset in the making, folks. Oh my God. An upset in the making as Derek White upset Jason Tatum with 60% of the vote, with Tatum getting 40%, and Brown and Pritchard was the other nominees. So it is settled. Our 3 nominees are all set right now. We got David Pastrnak, Charles Gill, and Derek White. Holy cow, anyone can win this game now. I'm not going to lie, folks. I thought not only Jason Tatum was going to win the Celtics nomination, I thought he was going to win the whole thing. But holy cow. But Derek White is a good candidate. Even though Tatum carried this team, he did have struggled some games even before his injury. But Derek White was the guy who stayed healthiest out of all 5 teams, and I think that made a huge, all 5 starters, and that made a huge difference. As we are going to move on, I just want to give you guys that quick play of the quarter update, as right before we got our main event of the evening, folks, we are going to, Boston fictional character icon has passed away yesterday. It is a sad day as from the beloved sitcom Cheers. Folks, you have the late, great George Wendt passing away from us yesterday, as he is a longtime actor of the legendary sitcom Boston area sitcom show Cheers, as it's a very important lore in Boston, as fictional character Sam Malone ran a bar called Cheers, as he was a washed-up Red Sox player in the 80s, as it took place from the 80s into the early 90s. It was iconic because this guy was an accountant, then he was unemployed, then he was a painter. Norm was so funny with his quotes, always sitting at the end of the table, drinking a bunch of beers. What a character. Married, supposedly had a wife, but he was unemployed. You could tell this was made in the 80s and 90s, because who has the money, unless you're rich, to go to a bar not just once a week, every single day after 9 to 5, drinking away and having some laughters, having some fantasies with some of those guys from Cheers, with Carla, the crazy bartender. It's a good time to acknowledge how important the sitcom is. I know we're sports, but we are Beantown, and the Cheers bar was an iconic figure in Faneuil Hall from the hit NBC sitcom that ran for 10 seasons. I wanted to acknowledge him. He was a funny guy. Norm, I hope George is having a beer. He had a Saturday Night Live crew too. He had a hit show. He's a pretty funny guy. Face it. He made a lot of laughs saying random stuff because the character was always drunk in the show Cheers, as he was a funny icon. Cheers doesn't get the credit it deserves, because obviously Seinfeld started in the late 80s compared to Cheers starting here, and you have people my age who love to rewatch The Office. With Cheers had great supporting characters, but The Office had a phenomenal main character and supporting characters. But Norm Peterson is one of the underrated fictional characters of all time. Since his actor passed away, I'm sure people will agree with me, so that's why I decided to post. It is now time for our main event of the evening, and it is your Boston Red Sox. Holy cow, they've been in the news. They struggle a little bit against the Atlanta Braves, as MLB tried to set up this rivalry weekend. Just because the Braves played in Boston 100 years ago, it doesn't mean that they are a huge born rivalry. Just call it interleague. If you have a rivalry weekend, Red Sox-Yankees is top. There's no doubt about it. And it looks like we're going to get a remission of that rivalry, hopefully, as the top 2 teams in the AL East are the New York Yankees. Aaron Judge hitting the ball well. And Max Fried has stepped up for the injured Garrett Cole, who they are without a season. And we're all worried about Jason Tatum. New Yorkers were probably worried about Garrett Cole and how they would handle his injury, as Max Fried's been kicking, but undefeated so far in his starts for the Yankees. You got Paul Goldschmidt that they picked up, and Volpe, and they still got Giancarlo Stanton, who isn't as elite as he used to be, but he still hits the ball as their scary team. We do play them in a few weeks, back-to-back weekends. I'll be going to the Father's Day game with my dad. I can't wait for that Sunday. I don't know if it's going to be on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball or not, but I'm going to try to get together with Ricky K. I have free time on Friday nights coming up if we can do a series either before the first Yankee series or the second one. But anyways, we're going to focus on this weekend with the Atlanta Braves. And we're going to have a live look at tonight as they play the top two National League East teams coming in. Matt Olson and the Atlanta Braves, and Alex Verdugo coming in too, facing his former team. They struggled on Friday, losing 4-2 as the Red Sox pitchers have been unreliable outside of Garrett Crochet with their Ian Chapman, but he's used for a closing spot. So you got Whitlock, who's been struggling. As it was a Chris Sale versus Garrett Crochet matchup. It was unbelievable. But Matt Olson started up the top of the second inning. We all thought, holy crap, Crochet struggling, sending back-to-back homers to Matt Olson and Sean Murphy. Olson and Acuna and Austin Riley have been the focal point of the Atlanta Braves the past few years, as they did struggle losing their first 10 matchups of the season, but Philadelphia Phillies did outtake them, and they're also facing the New York Mets. Crochet lost to Sale, as Sale had 8 strikeouts against his former team, and Bregman struggled this game. A lot of these guys struggled, but he had 8 strikeouts. Crochet did. That's the thing I love about this guy and why we had the trade with the Chicago White Sox. He has really stepped up. But another guy, Rob Ricefielder, has been back, the designated backup left center or right field in case Abreu, Rafaela, and Duran needs a break. He got a home run in this game. And breaking news, they're trying to get Campbell to come back from injury to try to play him first base. And the news I just found out today, which I'm so excited, I've been talking about it all spring training long. Marcelo Myers got called up from Worcester, as he'll be joining the main roster, as that will be awesome. As you got Trevor Story, I know people criticize him, but he can show up when he has to. He's had some walk-off hits this year. But speaking of walk-offs, they did lose 4-2 as Crochet couldn't play the whole game for obvious purposes. But all those guys didn't show up in this game, unfortunately. And it was very scary watching them Saturday night, as they were down 4-0 against the Braves this past Saturday. But they ended up doing so good in this game, as Matt Olson homered back-to-back in this game. And Azunia went back-to-back for the second night in a row. But holy cow, I'll admit in this game, they were down 5-0. There were 3 home runs given up on the Red Sox, which unfortunately isn't a good sign for some of our starters, including Lucas Giolito, who was coming back from injury. He only had 3 Ks, gave up 3 home runs. You got to do better than that. Garrett Whitlock didn't have a bad of a game, as he's either used as a setup guy or someone to get through the game. But a guy who's been impressing me for the Red Sox is Hunter Dobbins, as Brian Bello got his first loss on Sunday, but he has struggled all year. I know he came back from a late injury, but we all thought Bello and Hoke would be the second or third guy. But Tanner Hoke has been the most disappointing guy on the pitching staff for me. Garrett Weinzer, too, has been struggling. But Justin Slayton has become a good setup guy, and I love the pick of Chapman, who got the win on the Saturday game. And holy cow, I criticized Devers all week on last week, and he hit in extra innings his first ever clutch home run to send us all happy after we needed it after that rough Friday night for the Sox and the Celtics. It was an unbelievable game, folks, as they went on to lose the next day too. It's unfortunate they lost 2 out of 3 from the Braves. Devers did homer in back-to-back games. But a guy who's been impressing me for the Sox is Rafaela on the outfield. He isn't the greatest hitter in the world, but sometimes you don't have to be, as they lost 10-4 on Sunday after they were up 4-3. as they blew it. But we were all worried. They were playing the best team in the NL, and they made it and lost to the Dodgers last year. Is the New York Polar Bear Pete Alonso, the New York Mets, the biggest story of the Mets all offseason, signing from the other New York team, our arch rival Yankees, as the Mets and Red Sox had a unity moment, as whenever Juan Soto, the $100 million man coming up to the plate, the crowd was chanting, Yankees suck, Yankees suck. That was a hilarious moment, as it started off really good, too, on Monday, as Trevor Story did single on a ground ball. It was a great game to watch, as Chapman got his 7th save of the season, as Jarren Duran had a decent game going for 2 for 4. And Devers didn't have his 3rd consecutive game with a home run. But, hey, he's showing signs, and Bregman got an RBI, too. And a guy who's been really, really impressing for the Red Sox, that with the Celtics playoff being over, there'll be more eyes on him, especially with Connor Juan's injury, and he's been struggling in the bat anyways, even when he's healthy, is Carlos Navarez has had a few home runs this year. He's been leading the catchers and hitting. This guy is unbelievable. He can catch, too. You probably got to rotate him with Connor Wong to keep the legs fresh, as it's very hard with all that equipment. Even ask Jason Varitek, as rest in peace to the late, great Tim Wakefield. He even had Doug Marabelli catch for him on days off, as it is very tough to be a catcher and hit really good, as Juan Soto in this game did get stopped, same as Polar Bear Pete Alonso, who's a star for the New York Mets, one of their greatest batters in the National League, but a controversial guy who I kind of lost respect for. And I will get into it, as we got one of our best pitchers back, who was pitching well, off for a few weeks with an injury. Walker Buehler, they tried to get this guy from the Dodgers because he has such a competitive spirit. Last week proved it when he supposedly threw a ball to Lindor. And he challenged it, said it was a strike, but Alex Cora said it's bullshit. It was a strike, pardon my language, but the referees got so mad and ejected Buehler. There was a big fight. He showed some aggressiveness, and Lindor whined all night last night about it, which got him to throw Buehler out, which thankfully Rafael Devers stepped up clutch at the right time to get a solo home run. That's all they needed, which this team was unbelievable, getting 2 out of 3 so far against one of the best NL teams, the New York Mets, as Devers has been off the chain since I criticized them for supposedly refusing to play first base, but who knows? Maybe it was all a rumor. You never know. As Hunter Dobbins got him a chance to play. He didn't have his best game, giving up 5 hits and only 2 strikeouts, but he held them in there. Our bullpen actually came through for this team. That's unbelievable. We were leading the league in errors at one point with 29 of the year. As we're going to take a live look in before I announce the play of the quarter nominees for the Red Sox and how we're going to do it. We are tied at 1 right now, as Garrett Crochet versus one of the Mets' best pitchers, Nick Seingard, is going 1-1. I'm trying to get a live look in here as I'm trying to check how the Sox are doing, but it's probably a good pitching duel, as Garrett Crochet has to go deep tonight because their bullpen has gotten too much with the Dobbins not being able to finish 6 innings and Buehler getting thrown out of the game. Takes a lot of toll on your bullpen, no matter how much they're struggling right now, as they got Acuna too, as Tyler Miguel has been one of the best pitchers on the Mets this year. Thinking of another guy signed up. My bad, one of their other pitchers, but he's been playing against Garrett Crochet tonight, and he's been striking out a few for the Sox. As the Mets pitching haven't been the greatest this year, so that's why they're not in the top of the league. But Alex Bregman has striked out in this game so far. We'll take Crochet is currently live against the man I was just talking about, Juan Soto, who is 0 for 2. If he struck Soto out twice, this is why you got Crochet. And they got to get him some wins, as believe it or not, Crochet is only 4-3 of the year. It's because the bullpen or batters, whenever he pitches, don't seem to have their best game. And that can't be the case. As the person as Jaron Duran has gotten an RBI for the Sox this year, which is unbelievable. They have a chance to bounce back this weekend as they are playing one of the most disappointing teams in all of baseball, as they lost one of their Aldi Rutschman. And Tyler O'Neill's been injured for the Orioles, but one of the most disappointed teams of baseball have been the Baltimore Orioles at 15-30 and last place in the American League East. Who would have thought that coming in, as they have a phenomenal team of hitters, and they play a team that's 500 as well, who is competitive in the National League Central. Is the Milwaukee Brewers Monday through Wednesday on the road next week, but the Orioles do take on the Red Sox next week. I'm going to take a look at their stats right now. Gunnar Henderson has won 2023 Rookie of the Year, but even he's having an off year, only going 7 with 13 RBI, 7 home runs. You have Aldi Rutschman, who's one of the best catchers in all the American League. He's even been struggling this year, as they did lose Anthony Statanda to the Toronto Blue Jays, as the Blue Jays are in third place in the division right now, which Tyler O'Neill's been hurt. So Westbrook has been Cedric Mill has been one of their best and one of their best players on now has been a longtime Oriole, one of a phenomenal Gold Glove fielder. Cedric Millens is leading the team in home runs and RBIs with 10 and 31. So they'll have to find a way to fool him if the Red Sox want to take 3 out of 4. Hopefully we get 2 out of 4. You never know with the Red Sox team. Like I said a week back, they're a roller coaster, either the best or the worst team. As I'm going to read out the standings before we get into a Player of the Quarter nominee process for the Red Sox and Player of the Week. You got the Orioles 16-32. Tampa Bay Rays, Brendan Lowe in the game, 23-26. Toronto Blue Jays, 23-24. We are 500 at 25-25, and the Yankees are in first with 28-19, as they are currently playing one of the best in the AL West. Nathan Eovaldi, Adolis Garcia, Wyatt Langford, and the Texas Rangers right now, as they're fighting with the Seattle Mariners and the Houston Astros for best in the AL West. Absolutely, folks, this is going to be amazing. But now let's move on. Before we end the show, we got the final nominee being a Red Sox, and I decided to do the process different. We're going to have 8 players for the Red Sox, 4 pitchers, 4 batters, and we're going to have separate polls for each, and whoever wins those will face each other in the poll next week to determine the final participant. And let's read the pitchers. This is obvious. Garrett Crochet, despite 4-3, he's one of their best aces, striking out at least 7 a game before he got injury. And despite his competitive advantage, I'm starting to love this guy. He got the final out in the World Series against the Yankees. Walker Buehler. You got Adolis Chapman, who was the first ever Red Sox pitcher, Play of the Week, because he went 5 games without giving up an earned run, becoming a faithful closer for the Sox and People Award. And my dark horse, probably not surprising, is Hunter Dobbins, as he's been able to strike out 5 a game going, besides his last game against the Mets, going at least 5 innings. Not bad for a number 4 starter, as once again, Buehler, Crochet, Chapman, and Dobbins will be in a poll to determine the pitcher and who's going to be the batter nominees. It's obvious the guy leading the Red Sox in home runs and RBIs, the guy they got from the Houston Astros, Alex Bregman. You got a guy who's been finally doing well after struggling for the first month with going 0-18 in runners in scoring position to begin the year. Rafael Devers is our other nominee too. You got Jaron Duran, a phenomenal, consistent batter and fielder, a good leadoff guy. Always a guy you can depend on if you need a great game in the outfield. He won AL MVP for the All-Star game last year. And my dark horse, not really surprising if you look in his stats, my first ever Player of the Week, Wilyer Abreu, as he's tied with Bregman, not only for the AL in home runs, but the Red Sox in home runs. So my 4 nominees are Bregman, Devers, Duran, and Abreu. So this weekend I'll do the pitchers, and then Monday I'll do the batters for a fine who's going to join David Pastrnak, Derek White, Charles Gill as our Red Sox nominee for Player of the Quarter on June 7th. We will find out. We will narrow it down to 2 for next week. But now it's almost time to go, folks. And it's time for my Player of the Week. It's probably the easiest guess of all time. I had the easiest decision, especially with the Celtics not forcing a Game 7 and the Revs not scoring goals. It is Red Sox. And it is a man who had Mr. Clutch Big Poppy in him this past weekend on Fox Baseball. Rafael Devers, I criticized him all last week in our opener. Congratulations to him. As we got one more before we end the night, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been a great 13th episode as we are going to open with a State of the Sports Town next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're going to go over more Play of the Quarter. Check in on the Red Sox as hopefully they get a good winning percentage going against teams that are struggling, the Orioles and Brewers. If we have any Bruins and Celtics news, we'll cover that. How will BC women's lacrosse team do this weekend, Memorial Day weekend at Gillette Stadium? How will Northeastern fare against their first-round opponent when they get selected for the College Baseball World Series? As combat check-ins are over, can the Reds get back on the wing column? And we got a State of the Sports Town unique opener in history next week. As tune in. Thank you all for tuning in for the 13th episode. I'm your host that doesn't say his eyes, BMAdawg on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all sports. Signing off. Woo!